Hey friends, so glad you could join us again. Was feeling just a little down the other day, and I expressed that to my good friend Chris Duane. And Chris sent me a pick-me-up via email, and we decided to get on and just do a podcast-style little interview with absolutely no agenda at all. Chris, I'm feeling better today, and thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, this is a time of year where I think everybody's got the winter blues, the post-holiday blues, and you look at all the troubles that are going on in the world, and it's easy to get sidetracked and down on yourself. And I've gone through this struggle for many years. My life hasn't always been a fairy tale, and things haven't always been good. But I'm a firm believer that if people embrace and understand that what they're going through is natural and is what we need to go through in order to live a better life, the process becomes a lot less onerous and heavy on us. And that you can start to become an observer of the process in the world and relieve yourself of that stress that everybody's feeling right now. So as soon as you sent me that email, I was like, as a friend, I wanted to help you out, and I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Just so people kind of understand, where I was coming from, too. I was feeling a little down the other day, and a lot of times, as I expressed to you, staying up till 1, 2 in the morning, working on the website and stuff, it catches up to me about once a month, and I just need to go to bed early. And then even last night, I only went to bed at like 11 o'clock. It wasn't early enough. But, I was feeling like these people, and I wrote this, when they took silver below 30 the other night, I wrote, these people won't rest until everything good is destroyed, right? They want to target humanity. Until every shelter, meaning physical precious metals, is decimated. Until the dollar is worthless. They will target our children. When I wrote it, I was referring to Sandy Hook and vaccines. They will target our paychecks. I'm referring to this 2% payroll tax hike. They will eat out our sustenance. And I concluded it, Chris, by saying, we the people are already in a war. And I was really referring to kind of a civil war with the oligarchy. The problem is most Americans just don't realize it yet. So I was just coming at this from a lot of different places. They target silver. They target our kids in a school. They lie to us about what really happened. It's just this endless series of evils that it's just, when you're awake to it all, it can get a little overwhelming.
Yeah, and it is. I mean, the stuff that we're up against. It's not illusionary. It's not that it doesn't happen. But I chose a long time ago, after studying the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the military-industrial complex and false flags and vaccines and cancer and all these things that ail our society. And it basically comes down to our monetary system. Our monetary system is corrupt at the core. It enables the gamblers and the people that have the connections to steal wealth through inflation, through politics and legislation and bailouts and stuff like that, and it enables the worst in humanity. The collective, naturally promotes psychopaths to the top. It's not that power corrupts; it's that the corrupt seek power, and it's difficult to deal with all this stuff. But the other big thing that I took from all this research, and I got hooked into the fear loop with Alex Jones and all that other stuff, and I came to this fundamental conclusion that we need to stop, emotionally worrying about things outside of our control and start logically looking at things that are inside of our control. And this came from the simple realization that they are not, attacking us. They are not stealing from us. They are not suppressing us. They are not enslaving us. We are doing it to ourselves. I've watched many powerful people live in fear of being exposed, and that they're always in fear of losing everything. And if they, that's what we have, this debt and death cycle. We have these group of psychopathic oligarchs that create a system that benefits them, and they keep, adding more layers of complexity and trying to pad their nest and put off the day of reckoning. But at the end of the day, these people all know that they're living a lie, that they don't provide any real value to humanity, that at some point their game is going to be up, like Bernie Madoff, and it's done forever. So you have to look at the people at the top. They're doing what they think is just good business. I don't think that the majority of them are getting up saying, how can I kill as many people as possible today? I think they're going about their business like Madeleine Albright saying, when 500,000 Iraqi children die, that it is a good decision. Well, it's a great business decision in order to keep the debt and death paradigm alive. But at the end of the day, it's not, the Madeleine Albrights, the Henry Kissingers, the Rothschilds, or the Rockefellers that we need to worry about. It's us. We're enabling them. They're the ones that they make their power off of selling lies to get us to sacrifice what's good about us, our time, energy, and money, to focus on things that empower them. Every dollar that we spend, on, consumeristic products, every dollar that we keep inside their banking system, every vote that we enable in their left-right, lesser of two evil paradigms, we empower them. They don't control us. We give up our rights. We give up our money. We give up our freedom. We give up our views, our eyeballs. We give up our attention to watch TV instead of our children. The source of power lies within us, not the other way around. And I think that once people get that through their head and understand that they have the power of walking away from the system and empowering themselves and becoming detached from the system, the less they'll feel, a victim of it and rather an observer of it. Because I can tell you what, Sean, the more that you're outside their control, by having clear thoughts and clear mind and clear relationships and clear assets and clear life paths, the better off that you're going to be, not only when the dollar collapses, but also mentally going through this process.
I completely agree with that viewpoint. It's like being addicted to drugs and blaming the guy down in the corner that's selling you the drugs. The first path to getting off those drugs would be to stop going and supporting that guy by giving him your money to buy those drugs, which keeps you addicted. You're absolutely right.
And I mean, how empowering is that? Instead of, I constantly harp on Alex Jones, but, there's a fear loop and a hope loop that I think far too many people inside of our little community are stuck in. They get stuck on emotionally worrying about things that they have no control over. Worrying about school shootings, you have no control over that. If life were to happen, there's no choice about it. World War II, stock market manipulation, silver manipulation, you can't control any of that stuff, but you can start logically doing things that are inside of our control. So the consciousness shift immediately is stop worrying about things, emotionally worrying about things that are outside of your control, and start logically doing things that are inside of your control. The more that you start focusing on yourself and empowering yourself and the family around you and the network around you and the real tangible assets that you have, the better off you're going to feel, the more that you're going to be an observer of this sad tragedy that's going in slow motion about the collapse of the Western civilized world. The better off that you're going to be.
Let me push gently back on this concept of the fear loop, and we post a lot of InfoWars information and stuff too, and I know you appreciate what they're doing over there, and I hear what you're saying about the fear-based information can be very overwhelming, and it can put you in a psychological box that's hard to get out of, I think. But at the same time, these forces that you've just described, I see them as definitely targeting humanity in a very, very targeted way repeatedly, and the tyranny loop seems to be, speeding up. So, for instance, if we take 9/11 and we go, well, boy, they got away with a lot after 9/11 because they used 9/11 as a means to their ends. And then you want to educate people about 9/11. Well, 10 years later, how much sense does it make to keep talking about 9/11 because we can't change what happened that day? But at the same time, it's a tool to wake people up who are still asleep. Do you know what I mean? I guess what I'm trying to say is that as it pertains to, what happened at Sandy Hook, the official story versus maybe the reality of that situation, or as it pertains to this gun grab, those things are important to talk about and get the word out so that people can also take action and call their representatives and say, hey, we're not going to take this anymore. We are not going to take this. If you're not going to represent us, you're out on your ass. And that is a very empowering thing that people can do. And the only way people are going to do that is if we let people know, hey, there's reason to be afraid. They're coming after your guns. And if they take the guns, look what happened in Russia. They're probably going to kill 60 million of us.
Listen, I'm not putting down what he does. It's just at what point do people move on? There is a 5-step process of the awakening. I called it the 5 stages of the awakening. Majority of humanity is in denial. Alex Jones is a great guy to scare people into the anger phase, and he tends to revolve there. But the problem is when you don't offer solutions and constantly point out the things to be fearful, it freezes people. So at what point does that fear loop actually stymie the process of awakening and reaching the level of acceptance? I'll give you another example. Ron Paul was another one that I identified recently as having the opposite, hope loop, where people keep hoping that somebody's going to come save them. And to me, either fearing about things that you cannot control, which is all Alex does talk about Bilderbergers. I mean, like the average person is going to be able to do anything against the billionaires that control these corporations and politicians. The game's rigged. Like, you can't do anything inside the system. The only thing that we can logically do is walk away from the system and empower ourselves. And the more people that embrace that idea, that simple reversal of energy, the quicker that we become empowered and the quicker that they become disempowered. But back to Ron Paul, I supported him in 2008. I met with him, just before he got out of Congress, and I asked Dr. Paul, I said, Mahatma Gandhi, the reason why he became historically significant is because he stopped trying to work inside the rigged game and encouraged all of his people to walk away from the system. And that's what Mahatma Gandhi's, ultimate power was. It wasn't reforming the system because he was a barrister. He was a lawyer. I mean, he was a sharp guy. But he knew that the game was rigged, and he encouraged everybody to walk away from the system. And I encouraged Dr. Paul to do the same thing. Instead of us doing another money bomb, another vote for this guy, vote for that guy, sign this petition, march on Washington, do this collectively. All these are collective things. We need to individually take responsibility for ourselves, empower ourselves, educate ourselves, but then walk away. You have to get to the level of acceptance. And the only way you're going to get to acceptance is I understand the world is evil, screwed up, and doomed to fail because we have this incredibly screwed up monetary system that empowers all these psychopaths that control our world and our resources and corporations and wars and all that other stuff. And that the only way out of it is to say, I get that. What can I do now to move away from it? And that's when you have to start focusing your energy and stop watching all this stuff and start moving on with your life. Start taking responsibility for your life. Start taking responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, your assets, and what you do in your life. And that is the way out. At least that's the only way I found.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Personal power, right? Everybody needs to flex their personal power and take control over what they can control in their own personal sphere of influence. But, what I think you've done a really great job with, Chris, is spreading the message in a way to the masses, and not everybody has that ability, right? So I think kind of to your point is that you should do what, you and I have tried to do with the people in your own personal life that you can affect. The problem I've found is that friends, family specifically, generally, and you know this from firsthand experience, family doesn't want to hear this stuff. You grew up in their house, and they just think you're little Chris Duane that they raised and you had in diapers, and you're just the same little guy that couldn't possibly know more than they know. So they're going to reject everything you say out of hand, and that can be very, very frustrating. And just piggybacking on that, I would say that the other thing that I think is cool that the fear-based stuff does help people realize, helps them take personal action, is that it's like, okay, well, if they're going to target our guns, then we're going to let them know that our line in the sand is that they're not going to take our guns. We're going to call our representatives. We're going to stand up and speak truth because it's time to flex our personal liberty. We're not going to roll over anymore, and we're not going to be bad citizens by continuing to be ignorant and quiet. We're going to stand up and flex our liberty. We're going to make those calls. We're going to do those things that are necessary to preserve the republic. And that's all super positive stuff, too.
This battle is not a financial battle or a military battle or a legislative battle. It's one of consciousness, what we actively or passively support in our lives. And you're right. The average people will not listen to you in your life. So stop pushing your ideas on them. I found that the majority of people in this 5 stages of awakening, who are either in the anger stage, listen to Alex Jones and pulling their hair out about Bilderbergers and Federal Reserves and 9/11s and just being an overall downer, or people who are in absolute depression, who have burned through all their relationships in their lives and no one wants to listen about this stuff that we know to be important and true. But the only way to get people to listen to you, and I burned as many bridges as anybody else, and probably more famously than anybody else, by walking away from my family because they wouldn't listen, and I could no longer be in that toxic environment. The only way people will listen to you is if you walk your path in peace. That's how Jesus spread his word. That's how Buddha spread his word. That's how Gandhi spread his word. That's how Martin Luther King spread his word. And we need to understand that when you reach a level of acceptance where you say, listen, I'm educated, I know what's going on, but I'm going to empower myself and I'm going to do this peacefully, and I'm going to do it in a level that empowers me, you give encouragement to other people to go, hey, this guy used to be crazy guy, but now he seems to be really cool. And I remember them talking about guns and silver and stuff like that, and now he's doing really well in his life. And you have to get to a level where you can be an abundant source of energy to people. Kind of spin back this toxic stuff and put resonating, good stuff out there. And I try to tell people, once you start empowering yourself, coming to a level of sustainability is easy. Once you stop putting yourself into debt and focus your time, energy, and money on things that empower you by owning real tangible assets and, being able to produce your own food or maybe have a good barter network or stuff like that, you get to a level of abundance where the level of living isn't as difficult as we make it. We were talking earlier about the payroll taxes making it more difficult for the average family to live and stuff like that. Well, the reality is we indebt ourselves with colleges and mortgages and houses and cars and stuff that we really don't need that much of. And if we're able to kind of limit the amount of stuff that, and I'm not saying, walk away like I did, if you're able to limit the amount of stuff that you're able to put out there and really focus on what is important in life, the ease of living becomes a lot easier if you have a smaller nut. And then once you reach that level of abundance in your own personal life, that's the only happiness that you'll have. That's one level of happiness. The only other happiness you'll ever have in your entire life is helping others to reach that same level of abundance. So this is not a financial, military, or legislative battle. This is a battle of consciousness. We need to start changing the way we think, the way we act, what we support, and that's the only way that I can see out of this and keep your sanity and do this productively.
Let me ask you this, Chris. I get comments from time to time from folks that will say, please be careful, watch your back, because you're probably on the list now. You're a target of these people because of what you're doing and what you're saying. I've always only felt empowered by what I'm doing. But you've had a higher profile than me, especially now that you're doing these silver coins and stuff. And your site went down for like a week. What was that a targeted attack, do you think? Tell me about that.
I don't know. I mean, my site's been down 5 times. The first major one was May 1st, 2011. If you can remember that date, a couple of strange things happened that day, namely the $5 smackdown of silver, and Osama bin Laden died, supposedly for the 15th time. Yeah, I mean, my site has been attacked. Do I think it's malicious? Probably not. I mean, I haven't had anybody going, these hacker groups that put up, weird videos and change the text and everything. All the files have always been intact. But this touches on a very important point that I think that we all fear. In the coin that I did, I put the all-seeing eye on top of the slave queen. Because the all-seeing eye is really a psychological warfare of the elite to get us to self-regulate. When you understand that we empower them, the only way that they can control us is if we regulate ourselves. There isn't a police officer, there isn't a censor, there isn't a thought police guy controlling and conducting every single thing that we do. But we self-regulate ourselves out of fear. We fear speaking up or living life the way that we wish because we don't want to look foolish or we don't want to, cause offense or we don't want to get in trouble. But the reality is we're not doing anything wrong. People have asked me why I don't have Hushmail accounts and, why I don't, block my website and have higher levels of internet protocol and stuff like that. And I tell people, I have nothing to fear. There's nothing that I say in my private emails that I wouldn't say at the halftime show of the Super Bowl. And the game is us, not them. We regulate ourselves. We give away our rights. We give away our time, energy, and money onto their fixed, rigged game that ruins us. And as soon as we can stop, free our minds so that we can stop self-regulating, stop giving away the keys to the kingdom, and start living life the way that we wish to and being with people that we wish to and thinking thoughts that we wish to, we're always going to be in this problem. And I think that we're at the point, Sean, that we are going to reach after the anger phase, because I'm no naive person about how dangerous this next phase is going to be. But after the anger phase, I really believe a golden age of humanity is available, because this will be the first time that we'll have the technology, the means of communication, and that finally, I think, the conscious understanding of what we're actively or passively doing in this world. And I think the anger stage is going to burn off and kill off a lot of psychopaths that benefited off of this system. Those that live by the sword will die by the sword. And I think that there's a chance for the meek to inherit the earth, where the people who have consciously rebelled against the system and started taking productive action for their thoughts and their minds and their relationships can be there to reestablish a newer and better way of living. And that's how I think the meek shall inherit the earth. If inflation is a problem and it's in their game, well, I walk away. And because silver's down $1, I don't care. I know you and I both know the amazing amount of effort that goes into producing 1 ounce. I mean, geez, forget about the mining. Just even the minting of these coins, it's tough.
This new one is really hot, and it's extremely cool, in my opinion, the Slave Queen. Who's designing these? Did you draw these all yourself, or what is the process here? Because these are really unique. They've never been seen before.
Yeah, no, they're all my ideas, but I cannot take credit for the physical art. Heidi Wastweet is my sculptress and art designer, and she's just an incredibly talented person. Number one, it's one thing to come up with ideas, but it's a whole other thing to actually create the hand-drawn art to do that. And then it's a beyond and talented and incredible thing, at least in my mind, to sculpt these things, because you have to realize that in order to sculpt these things, you have to do it in reverse and backwards. And I told Heidi, I said, she reminds me of Ginger Rogers. Everybody always said Fred Astaire was a talented dancer, but Ginger Rogers had to dance with him backwards and in heels. And for her to be able to do these type coin designs is just a match made in heaven, because I definitely have the symbolic ideas and the messages that I know resonate with people. But if I didn't have the artists to be able to create the images that I have in my mind, these coins would be not half as popular as they are today.
Yeah, well, it's just really cool that, somebody can hone in a passion and find a avenue for that passion. And in this case, it's an avenue of something that's completely positive. You're not enabling this death-based paradigm, which you talk so much about. You're doing the opposite of that, and it's giving people an opportunity to just kind of go, well, you know what, that's a cool thing. I'm going to support it, because here I was going to buy some Silver Eagles or Canadian Maples anyway. I just think it's super cool.
Well, thanks, Sean. But it's one thing to be able to do this because it's a natural fit given my passions and artistic talents and messaging and all that other stuff. But I want to encourage everybody else to start doing this. This was a long, conscious decision to get to this point, and it starts with a 4-step process of extricating yourself from this. I mentioned to you before that 90% of the battle is in our heads. We are our own worst enemies and our own champions. And the first step is to get rid of toxic thoughts. You have to stop thinking anything that gets you down and start replacing with positive, productive things that you can do in your own personal life. Once you have taken that very difficult battle, and it's not easy to do that, then you start living a life of abundance where you can start providing value for value to others out there. You can start giving without thought of return, without calculation. And you start to see that you are either surrounded by people who are going to take from you, be toxic and probably put bad, negative thoughts into you, or you're going to be surrounded by people who are supportive of you and want to encourage you and provide opportunities and comfort to you. And that's probably 95% of the battle. The final 2 steps are, get rid of toxic assets. If you have any paper asset that derives its value off of a counterparty making good on its promise, whether it's money, bonds, stocks, real estate, or anything else, you better get out of that, because it's in a toxic system that's going to collapse, and that you need to have real assets, whether that's food or guns or silver. You need to start physically preparing for yourself. And then the final step is an example of this. This was a natural fit for me, but I don't expect everybody else to go out making coins. What people need to start doing is start saying, am what I'm doing in my life resonating with me? Do I get energy from it? Can I go to work and be empowered by it and stay up and miss meals and not even thinking about it because I love my work so much? Chances are 99% of the people out there are going to say no. And while I'm not encouraging everybody to do what I did and just, bolt your job and leave your, thing and go chase a dream, what I would encourage people to do is to start, stop watching TV, maybe stop reading 90 hours on the internet, and start actually doing something that does make you happy, whether it's a hobby, whether it's tinkering, whether it's writing or creating art or coming up with something. Do something on the side outside of your income-producing job right now that you love doing, and that will eventually become more valuable as humanity's values change from this debt and death paradigm to those that produce solutions and values, which we are desperately going to need when the system collapses.
Yeah, isn't that funny that you and I have both we've put in that time. We've done exactly what you're talking about. This YouTube thing, when I started it, I was up every night until midnight, just like I'm up every night now until midnight or beyond, working on the website and stuff. But I get the nicest comments from people saying, thank you so much for what you're doing. I want to tell people, thank you for coming and saying thanks for being a part of this. We're all in this mess together. And I just want to say one last thing about what you're saying, Chris. For anybody that wants to undertake, a passion, if it is about getting the word out, if it's about writing a story, exposing crime or exposing corruption, if it's, whatever it is that you're passionate about that pertains to what you're doing or what I'm doing at SGT Report, I'm happy to repost those articles that people write. I'm happy to support new people that are in this. I'm happy to post your YouTube video if it's well done, well thought out, well crafted, and well articulated. Send me the link. The more the merrier in this thing, because it's all an example of people waking up and getting involved and taking action, and that's what inspires me. I think it's just cool as hell.
Sean, can I finish with one final thought?
Yeah.
I think that as we go along in this path, the nation state, whose football team that you root for, which college you went to, which corporation you work for, those things that are so important in our society. If you go meet anybody, what do you do for a living? Those things are going to go the way of the dodo bird when this paradigm collapses. And I think that humanity has an opportunity of realigning itself consciously with people who they resonate with. You and I would have never met had it not been the internet and what we do. And I think that when this paradigm collapses, humanity is going to stop identifying, or associating with each other, based upon racial lines or religious lines or what football team or, any of these superficial things, and start aligning themselves consciously with people that they wish to live with, support, and respect. And I think that there is going to be a huge realignment in humanity, at least for those people who are consciously awake, to say, hey, everything that I've worked for is pretty much done. I cannot continue to live in this debt and death paradigm. I'm going to start actively pursuing things that are consciously resonate with me, and start doing that. And I think that we're going to see a realignment of humanity based off of what people are attracted to and resonate with, and start physically relocating around the world to places where people are going to be more intellectually aligned, as opposed to just nationally aligned, or that we lived here forever. We're friends with our neighbors because they live next to us or their kids go to school with us, but we very rarely have the opportunity of having somebody that we really resonate with on a deep basis in our own personal lives. And I think that once the system collapses, there will be an opportunity for humanity to realign that way. And then, geez, what can't you do? Get me in a room with one other guy that I resonate with, and can you imagine what a community of thousands or tens of thousands of people intellectually aligned to be able to do? I think that that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, what a great message of hope. Well, we joked the other day that when we spoke on the phone, you'd give me a nice pick-me-up, and I do feel better. So thanks, man. All right, and I know you got to fly. You've got another interview to do, don't you?
Yeah, but it was good talking to you. We'll keep pushing the fires. Right now, I think that the best use of our time and talents right now is to build the intellectual foundation, which I think these conversations help get people to consciously change what they're actively or passively supporting in their lives. The second most important thing is building out that network of individuals. So, you and I know that we're building connections and deeper connections with people that we've never met face to face, and people that we may have known for 20 or 30 years, based off of the intellectual alignment that we have. And then the third most important thing is just keep stacking. Get that food prepared, get the weapons and the means of defending yourself, and certainly stack the capital that's going to help build the solutions after the fires burn out.
Yeah, and just real quickly, if people want to join the Sons of Liberty Academy or just see the rest of your work on the internet, why don't you tell them how to do that?
Yeah, you can go to sonsoflibertyacademy.com. That's a perfect example of giving away one's life work. I mean, I spent years putting that thing together. It's 48 hours of video lessons of every single thing that I wish I had, or that I did learn in the way that I wish I had learned it. And by me giving that abundance away, and you can read about it, my leap of faith, by me giving that away to people, I've received far more in return in connections and opportunities than I would ever have been had I kept that scarcity mentality of my old car dealership days. And that I really encourage people to start, consciously living an abundant life, and it starts inside of our heads. And stop worrying about the bad guys out there. Start taking control and responsibility for yourself.
All right. Thanks, Chris. We sure do appreciate your time and your voice.
Awesome. It was good to catch up with you.
You too. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay, bye.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I really can't thank you enough. Please tune in to sgtreport.com for the very latest in alternative news, and check out thelibertymill.com. Real news 24/7. Thanks for watching.